Good evening. Tonight's Spotlight on the Stars salutes Vaughn Monroe. Tonight on Spotlight on the Star, we are privileged to have as our special guest one of the most popular band leaders of the 1940s, Mr. Vaughn Monroe. Mr. Monroe, welcome to Spotlight on the Star.
Thank you. It's very nice to be here and very nice of you to have me.
Some questions we'd like to ask you, among them, how do you account for your success as a dance band during the late 1940s when the big bands were starting to die out?
Well, we were basically, you might say, a band with a singing leader, which none of the other bands had. The other boys were all instrumentalists. And, of course, the upswing in vocalists during the latter part of the 40s was right in line with what I'd been doing all along as a singing band leader. So we were as much in demand in the late 40s and the early 50s as we were when we in 46. But I attribute that to the fact that most of our releases were vocal releases with a lot of choral work, and we just fit into the niche there where they were starting to record vocalists rather than bands. We were very fortunate.
Which did you prefer, leading the band or singing vocals?
Well, I enjoyed both. I was trained as a conductor, trumpet player, and so leading was, at one time, I was assistant director of the Carnegie Tech Symphony in Pittsburgh with a classical background, more than a pop background. Although I played trumpet in the symphony, and I also played in dance bands going through college. Matter of fact, I earned my way through college playing trumpet. So it was a very easy, very simple thing for me to combine the singing with the band and also leading the band, directing it.
Going back in time, did you always want to become a singer?
No. When I started studying trumpet when I was 11 years old, My whole life was wrapped up in becoming good enough to become the solo trumpet player with John Philip Sousa or one of the great concert bands. That was in the early 30s. When I was 17, by that time I'd won the state championship of Wisconsin as a trumpet soloist in high school, in the high school state contest. And I was well on my way to attaining my goal with being a soloist with one of the big concert bands. Well, then came the Depression, and I had to go to work in dance bands to make a living or to get my way through college. In the meantime, I had started to sing at the request of the choir director in our church in Jeanette, Pennsylvania, where we'd now moved. I said I would sing bass in the choir, which was my first real introduction to singing. And it was really just an experiment. But the choir director, who was a very fine voice teacher too, offered to give me free voice lessons if I would stay in the choir and sing. So I said, well, what can I lose? You know, it's free. Well, as time went along, by the time I was ready for college, I'd gone about as far as I could on the trumpet as far as taking lessons and studying. So I decided to major in voice, which I did at Carnegie Tech. Then, as I said, along came the Depression, and I had to go out and earn my living as a trumpet player. And it wasn't until 1940 that I was convinced by a fellow I worked for in Boston that I should combine the vocals with the trumpet playing in the dance band. Prior to that, I was a sort of a square. I didn't want to sing pop music. I thought that was I was ruining all my training as an opera singer. But he convinced me that I'd be a much more valuable man to anybody or any leader by singing and playing trumpet both. Well, eventually in 1940, this same fellow whom I've been playing for asked me if I wouldn't like to form a big band, I mean a name band, with his support and become a partner with him. And the two of us started the band in 1940 in Boston. And through the combined efforts of the band, myself and my partner, and a record contract with RCA in 1940, in June of 1941, we were at the Paramount Theater in New York, which means you more or less have been accepted and arrived, you might say. At least you're on your way. And from that time on, I combined the vocals with directing and running the band.
The heads are up, the chests are out, the arms are swinging and Kate is count. Sound off, sound off, sound off, sound off. Kate is count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Let's go back and count some more. Sound off, sound off, sound off, sound off. Kate is count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're right. up, the heads are up, the chests are out, the arms are swinging and Katie's count. Sound off, sound off, sound off, sound off, Katie's count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Eeny, meeny, miny, moe, let's go back and count some more. Sound off, sound off, Katie's count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Company! 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Good evening again. I'm David Schwartz, and Bob Turner is engineering. Tonight on Spotlight on a Star, we're featuring an interview with bandleader Vaughn Monroe. We started tonight's program with Vaughn Monroe's theme song, Racing with the Moon, and that was followed by Sound Off. Continuing with our interview, I asked Mr. Monroe what it was like working with such bands as Larry Funk and Austin Wiley.
Well, it was hard work, but it was a means for me to mature vocally and artistically and get the experience that on the road of doing one-nighters and packing the band bus and packing up music and playing first trumpet and singing in the floor show. All this was experience that you can't gain any other way. It just has to be done that way. That's not so today. It doesn't seem, because a lot of the folks who are making records today can't even read music. It's just a sound they get with a bunch of amplified instruments, and if the current goes off, they're out of business. You know, all the big amplifiers would be out of commission. But I consider that time on the road with Larry Funk and Austin Wiley and Jack Michaud, who later became my partner, the only way I got the experience that enabled me to stand up in the ensuing years in front of a band with, sometimes we did 351 nighters in 1 year. And riding in a bus, irregular hours, sometimes very irregular eating because of schedules. It took a lot of experience to be able to know how to handle that. And so I say that time I spent with those other bands was very well spent. It's something, it was an era which enabled a young musician with no experience to go with a local territory band and become proficient in playing with other musicians and playing in groups, sections. And it was a great training ground. It's like the minor leagues and the major leagues of baseball or of sport. If you don't have, if you have that opportunity, then it does you good. You learn things. You become proficient, professional. Today, we don't have that situation for our young musicians. There are no young bands, there are no territory bands that really work that much to enable for them to get that experience. But I deplore the fact that the situation exists, but what can you do? The youngsters want rock and roll, and the older groups want the big band business, the big band sound. So that's what I'm doing now, most of the time, fronting bands and playing the music that these folks want to hear.
There I go, spilling all the dreams I don't know if you care, darling, but there I go. Dance, ballerina, dance, and do your pirouette in rhythm with your aching heart. Dance, ballerina, dance, you mustn't once forget a dancer has to dance the part. Whirl, ballerina, whirl, and just ignore the chair that's empty in the second row. This is your moment, girl, although he's not out there applauding as you steal the show. Once you said his love must wait its turn, you wanted fame instead. I guess that's your concern. We live and learn, and love is gone, ballerina gone. So on with your career, you can't afford a backward glance. Dance on and on and on. 1,000 people here have come to see the show. As round and round you go, so ballerina dance. Once you said his love must wait its turn, you wanted fame instead. I guess that's your concern. We live and learn, and love is gone, ballerina gone. So on with your career, you can't afford a backward glance. Dance on and on and on. 1,000 people here have come to see the show. As round and round you go, so ballerina dance. Dance, dance, dance,
You just heard a million-selling performance by Vaughn Monroe, Ballerina, and before that, There I Go. The National Parks and Conservation Association believes parks are for people. According to National Park Service estimates, visitations to our national parks will top 213 million by the end of the year. Our parks are threatened by serious problems of overcrowding and overdevelopment with massive traffic jams and noise. We need more parks in wilderness areas, and we need to protect those we have. You can help save the parks for the people. For information, write National Parks and Conservation Association, Washington, D.C., 20009. It's 9:20, and you're listening to Spotlight on a Star, Vaughn Monroe. How do you feel about today's music?
Well, I feel that we're gradually emerging from the original concept of rock and roll, which was a great deal of loud music with very few chord changes, indistinguishable lyrics. But in the past couple of years, I feel that they're sort of emerging with a larger concept of what they should be doing. In other words, they're adding instruments to their rhythm groups, which means that they're going to have arrangements, which means that eventually they might evolve into fairly good-sized outfits. One thing that I think is not standing many of them in good stead is the fact that they use names, such as, the Rolling Stones and so many different names, the Four Notes. They are not building anything individually as far as reputation. And when the name fades out, nobody will ever know who was in that particular band. So they're not gaining anything which I would say would be lasting. At least when we went on the air or recorded, it was Vaughn Monroe and his orchestra, or Harry James and his orchestra, or Tommy Dorsey. There was a name associated with it as the head of it. And that was the person who was establishing and gaining a reputation by the constant repetition of people hearing that. And today, Harry James is still doing very well. Les Brown, Guy Lombardo, Sammy Kaye, Bob Crosby. A great many of the leaders of that era are still doing very well and playing for all of the big private organizations like the policemen, police balls, hospital balls, Shrine, a great many Shrine affairs, and we do very well doing that and playing for people who appreciate it and have the money to pay for it.
With you are just a memory, just a memory. That is all that's left to me. Happiness, I guess, is just a memory, just a memory of a love that used to be. Will we share the night, the moon, the stars above again? Will we live to hope, to sing, to smile, to laugh again? Love again. In my dreams, it seems your face is near to me, and it's dear to me, though it's just a memory. Of days I spent, my dear, with you. Will we share the night, the moon, the stars above again? My darling, will I live to hope, to sing, to smile, to laugh again? Love again. In my dreams, it seems your face is near to me, and it's dear to me, though it's just a memory. In my dreams, you're just a memory.
you have any plans to do any new records?
Oh, yes, as a matter of fact, we have, by the time this is played, we might surprise you with a couple of new albums. I can't say any more about it right now because it's just in the planning stage. But we do have very definite plans. We haven't done much in the last couple of years because I just couldn't find the company I wanted to record for that I thought would do the job that you need today to exploit a record and really distribute it correctly. So we're talking now, and I may know within the next couple of days.
Do you feel the big bands are making a comeback?
Well, there seems to be a great deal of revived interest in a great many sections. For example, there are several new ballrooms that are opening up and doing nothing, playing nothing but name bands, or the name band sound, the big band sound. And from all reports from Variety magazine and the other trade papers, these particular spots are doing a landslide business, which means that if it's available for people in the right surroundings, they're going to come and hear it. And I do feel that our big salvation today, though, is an interesting young, good performers or good instrumentalists or good vocalists into forming new young bands, which will take our place when we decide to turn in our baton. I do hope that's going to happen so that these younger musicians will get a chance to play things they want to play, able to work with teammates, and come out with a band with the precision of the men we had.
I want some red roses for a blue lady. Mr. Forrest, take my order, please. We had a silly quarrel the other day. Hope these pretty flowers chase her blues away. Wrap up some red roses for a blue lady. Send them to the sweetest gal in town. And if they do the trick, I'll hurry back to pick your best white orchid for her wedding gown. So lovely to see, what a happy day that will be. Wrap up some red roses for a blue, my lovely lady, and send them to the sweetest gal in town. And if they do the trick, I'll hurry back to pick your best white orchid for her wedding gown. She'll be so lovely on her wedding day.
KED Men, and before that, Just a Memory. In talking with Mr. Monroe, I found out that he had 4 tunes, Ballerina, There I've Said It Again, Ghost Riders, and Racing with the Moon, that he considered his all-time greatest. What he and I would like to know from you is, of the 4, which tune is your favorite? Our phone number is 885-3090, and the tunes are Ballerina, There I've Said It Again, Ghost Riders, and Racing with the Moon. Give me a call at 885-3090 and tell me what is your favorite Vaughn Monroe tune. What were some of the unusual incidents that occurred during the big band era that happened directly to you or your band?
Well, that's kind of a hard thing to tie down. Could give you one example of heading for a job down in West Virginia on our bus, and trying to make time over the mountains, and our bus driver just used the brake a little too much, and by the time we got to the bottom of this one mountain, one of the boys in the back said, "Hey, I smell smoke." So the bus driver laughed and went on a little further and said, "Look, I smell smoke." So the bus driver stopped, and we all got out to stretch our legs. We thought it was a brake band, and he put the fire extinguisher on, and away we go. We got out of the bus, and all of a sudden it burst into flames and blew up with 200 gallons of gas, which we just put on, and burned completely with all our personal effects, tennis rackets, golf clubs, flutes, typewriters, fur coats from the girls, and everything just went up in smoke. That wasn't a very funny incident, I'll tell you that, because we worked that day. We finally got the job. We worked on our shirt sleeves, and fortunately the music and the instruments were in the band truck, so we were able to carry on, but we did lose a lot of personal things. Another time, we were playing the World Championship Rodeo in Madison Square Garden in New York, and we were playing, well, we had 18,000 underprivileged and crippled children in there for this one benefit show we did during the time the rodeo was on. And we were playing Ghost Riders in the Sky, and we came to this part where you go, yippee-yi-yo, yippee-yi-yo, and we heard this answering, which just swelled out of nowhere, and I knew it wasn't the boys in my band who were singing that, because I only had 4 singers with me. And all of a sudden we realized that all of these youngsters were singing Ghost Riders in the Sky with us, and it sounded like a great big heavenly choir. And I mean, we got goosebumps and chills and almost stopped playing. We were so astounded. And when we got through, the boys in the band said that was one of the most thrilling experiences that ever happened to them.
An old cowpoke went riding out one dark and windy day. Upon a ridge he rested as he went along his way. When all at once a mighty herd of red-eyed cows he saw, a-plowing through the ragged skies and up a cloudy draw. The ghost herd in the sky. Their brands were still on fire and their hooves were made of steel. Their horns were black and shiny and their hot breath he could feel. A bolt of fear went through him as they thundered through the sky, for he saw the riders coming hard, and he heard their mournful cry. Ghost riders in the sky. Their faces gaunt, their eyes were blurred, and shirts all soaked with sweat. They're riding hard to catch that herd, but they ain't caught 'em yet, 'cause they've got to ride forever on that range up in the sky, on horses snorting fire as they ride on, hear their cry. Yippee-yi-oh, yippee-yi-oh. Ghost riders in the sky. As the riders loped on by him, he heard one call his name. If you want to save your soul from hell, a riding on our range, Cowboy, change your ways today, or with us you will ride, trying to catch the devil's herd across these endless skies. Yippee-yi-yi, ghost riders in the sky.
Will sail again all over the world. Then we'll have time for things like wedding rings, and free hearts will sing when the lights go on again all over the world.
Was When the Lights Go On Again, a song from World War II, and before that, Ghost Riders in the Sky, one of our 4 tunes. We're asking you to call us in and tell us which is your favorite Vaughn Monroe tune. Our lines are now opened at 885-3090. Next week, Spotlight on a Star celebrates our first anniversary with our special in-studio guest, Pat Williams. Pat, who has composed music for such TV shows as Mary Tyler Moore, Cannon, and The Bob Newhart Show, will be here with Steve Gray to take calls from you to answer your questions. That's next week on Spotlight on a Star, and during the rest of August, we'll be featuring Nancy Sinatra, Eddie Fisher, and Artie Shaw. Getting back to tonight's show, we're still taking calls at 885-3090 as to your favorite Vaughn Monroe tune, but now let's get back to our interview as I talked with Vaughn Monroe about his greatest hits.
Well, I think I'd have to name 4 that were just about neck and neck. Ballerina, There I've Said It Again, and Racing with the Moon, which sold an awful lot of copies. I have gold records on all of these. And Ghost Riders in the Sky, Ballerina, the 4. And they were just about the biggest things, and I think their total sales among the four was something like 20 million. Overall, according to RCA Victor, we have now sold or listed as sold over 82 million records.
There I said it again.
Every weekday at 5, Radio Free Northridge and National Public Radio presents All Things Considered, a program of news and information which goes below the news and discovers real people actively involved in a real world. All Things Considered is unique in the country, and you can hear it weekdays at 5 on Upfront Public Radio, KEDC 88.5. Our featured album tonight is the best of Vaughn Monroe and RCA, released in 1967. Mr. Monroe talked earlier in tonight's show about a new album that was supposed to have been out around now. Unfortunately, it hasn't been released yet, but as soon as we get information on it, I'll pass it along to you. Continuing with our interview conducted at the Disneyland Hotel, Vaughn Monroe talked about his novelty tune, The Maharaja of Magador.
Ziggy Talent was my tenor man, but he also had this very strange, odd voice, and when he came with me, we started using him on unusual songs, things like Sammy Made the Pants Too Long, which are novelty songs, and Josephina, Please No Lean on the Bell. The folks who know Ziggy Talent will know the whole roster of his songs because they were great avid fans. And one of the publishers, all the publishers naturally like to get a recording on something, so they were always looking for tunes for Ziggy Talent. And one of the publishers brought in Maharaja. And my arranger made it up, and we went and recorded it, and it became a big thing for Ziggy and a big thing for us when we did our shows. He always was featured in the show. He now lives in New York and is still playing and doing very well.
What was the public reaction to that tune?
Well, it was one of humor, of laughing at the lyric and laughing at Ziggy's interpretation of it, because it was very unusual, as you understand when you hear the record. He has a range from a man right into a girl soprano voice with no change, and it's very unusual.
Of Magador, who had 10,000 camels and maybe more. He had rubies and pearls and the loveliest girls, but he didn't know how to do the rumba. He could afford a big reward, so to his people one day he said, which means take my rubies and take my pearls, take my camels and take my girls. Rumba lessons I wanted for the rich Maharaja of Magador. So a slick little chick answered, that's for me, through the ad he had placed in Variety. When she saw his expense, she could tell at a glance that he'd never learn how to do the rumba. He had his wealth, he had his health, so he looked in her eyes and said, take my rubies and take my pearls, take my camels, I'll keep my girls. From now on you'll be working for the rich Maharaja of Magador. He was anxious to learn, so she taught him right, but she taught him the thrill of a moonlight night. He discovered the bliss of a half-promised kiss, but he never learned how to do the rumba. And on the day she went away, you could hear all the people say, she took his rubies and took his pearls, took his camels and all his girls, took his money and what is more, more. She made the rich Maharaja, the poor Maharaja of Magador.
What are your future plans?
Well, we now are doing about 121 nighters a year. I don't see much change in that. There is always a possibility when you're a performer of getting a call for a television series, which would interest me very much. I haven't had as much television exposure as I would like, but we were the first band to ever televise a regular show out in New York on CBS. So we did have great exposure during that time. As I said, we're bickering on this recording contract, and if you bring out a new album, many things can happen from that. So, but basically, I'm just interested in working the jobs I want to work, like the Regency Hyatt Hotel in Chicago and the same one in Atlanta, and we play Vegas every once in a while. I don't really have any stupendous plans for the future because I am now at an age in my career where I don't want to work that hard. I want to enjoy life a little bit. And we live in Florida, and we have a lovely home there. I have a boat. My boat, which I cruise up and down the river on and fish from. And that's about it. I don't have any stupendous plans because I think we've done just about every phase of the business that a band could do or a person could do. We've done movies. I did 2 Western pictures at Republic. I did one at MGM. We've been the tops in the recording field, you might say, for many years when we were real active in it with big hit records. I have no desire to spend the rest of my life doing one-nighters, so I take as many as I feel like I want to take care of the bookers and the crowds or the organizations that want it, but we're not really pressing for any more work.
Mr. Monroe, thank you for appearing on Spotlight on the Star tonight.
My pleasure.
Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream, make her complexion like peaches and cream, give her 2 lips like roses in clover, then tell me that my lonesome nights are over. Sandman, I'm so alone, don't have nobody to call my own. Please turn on your magic beam, Mr. Sandman, bring me a Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream, make her complexion like peaches and cream, give her 2 lips like roses in clover, then tell me that my lonesome nights are over. Sandman, I'm so alone, don't have nobody to call my own. Please turn on your magic beam, Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream.
That was Mr. Sandman by Vaughn Monroe. Before that, the Maharaja of Magador, Ziggy Talent vocalizing with Vaughn Monroe and his orchestra. Tonight's Spotlight on a Star program marks the end of our first year of broadcasts. At this time, I would like to thank all the people who have worked and helped us on the show, and a special thanks to two people in particular, Don Page of the Los Angeles Times and Steve Gray of our KEDC staff. I would also like to say thank you to you, our listeners, for without you, this show would not have been possible. We would appreciate your comments on tonight's show. Please write us at KEDC FM, Northridge, California, zip code 91324, or call us at 885-3090. Stay tuned next for Your Mother Should Know with Steve Hoffman, right here at 88.5 KEDC FM, Northridge.